Ever since he stepped into the field with the LIV Golf Series, Greg Norman has had the upper hand on the PGA Tour. But after the Tour's plans to once again copy his formula, it seems like the Australian is set to suffer a defeat that he's already witnessed in the past. Is this new format an actual cause for concern, though? Or is Norman better equipped to fight now? Well, keep watching to find out. First up, Greg Norman's previous league that didn't even take off. The PGA Tour has been around for a very long time, so obviously it would have had its ups and downs over the years as well. But one of the most intriguing things about this resilient association's always been how it manages to somehow skirt its way around glaring challenges. Like, obviously, LIV Golf seems like an existential threat right now, but it's actually not the first time something like this has happened to the Tour either. We mean, you don't even have to look that far to see a power struggle in the golfing world that's been going on for decades at this point. And at the center of it all is the Aussie legend, Greg Norman himself. Now, most newer fans think that he's pounced on a great opportunity by taking the leadership role for the Saudi League. Oh, and of course that statement isn't entirely false either. Make no mistake though, because Norman's been in this game for much longer than that. In fact, he's been trying to establish his rival league since the 90s, and even came very close to doing so. It was only due to the Tour's blatant ripoff of his brilliant idea of a World Golf Championship in 1994 that he actually lost that battle and returned empty-handed. That said, it didn't come as a surprise to anyone because, again, that's just what the PGA does. We mean, former Commissioner Tim Fincham even publicly thanked the Australian for his suggestion, just to add insult to injury. Now, Norman is staring down the barrel of a similar defeat yet again. Obviously, the PGA Tour stealing his idea and building a successful franchise out of it didn't sit quite well with the two-time major winner, and even though he didn't have the political influence or the heritage of his rivals to fight back, it didn't stop him from trying. So for over 20 years, he's been carving out the perfect master plan to finally get his sweet revenge. Let's be clear here, this was always his idea, and the Saudis just happened to be the facilitators. Besides, after he lost out just due to the sheer lack of resources against this massively influential group, he wasn't going to turn down the opportunity to have some robust backing himself. But after the Tour's announcement to switch up its format, the future doesn't look too bright for the 67-year-olds league. We mean, LIV Golf's entire shtick was that they'd have some of the best golfers in the world going head-to-head in these blockbuster events. Plus, of course, there was also the insane money involved as well. The PGA Commissioner, Jay Monahan, though, seems to have picked a leaf out of his predecessor's book by copying the Australian's master plan yet again, and reminding him that no matter how powerful he gets within the golfing community, he just can't compete against the association. After all, without any substantial measure to differentiate the two entities, would you really hedge your bets on the Saudi League to be the more popular competition? Probably not. But the PGA Tour didn't just change to squash Norman's efforts. Now, it's easy to get hyper-focused on media narratives and see the Tour's move as a direct attack on LIV Golf. But the reality is that even if Norman wasn't there to fan the flames of competition, the association would have needed this shakeup anyway. Take Phil Mickelson, for example. Before his eventual switch to the Saudi League, he'd been super vocal about the PGA's shortcomings and how it needed to transform to stay relevant. It just so happened that LIV was right there with his ideas in a ready-made form. Don't get us wrong though, the breakaway competition's continued march toward dominance was definitely the reason for such a quick response from the Tour. It's just that we would have seen these changes being made at a later date without Norman's involvement. That being said, what we can't deny is the fact that Monahan's team has pulled a masterclass by getting some of the biggest PGA Tour names involved in the process and giving them a voice, which again isn't something that we've seen in the past. Of course, the Australian would think that he's seen the same thing happen to him before as well. But honestly, the way that these events are unfolding now is very different from what went down in the 90s. We mean, who would have thought that an invitation-only meeting between the association's top members would be spearheaded by Tiger Woods? Like, that fact alone makes this so much bigger than anything we've witnessed before. Next up, just how significant was that PGA Tour meeting? A lot has been said about the meeting that was held over the playoff weekend, but one thing that people are barely mentioning is the sheer gravitas and significance behind it. Make no mistake, we're seeing history being written right in front of our very eyes because we've literally never seen all the PGA Tour's top members convene together in a single room like this. And we could very well be looking at this moment a few years down the line as the turning point where the association turned its fortune around and knocked LIV Golf out. But of course, it's so much more than just fending off the threat from Greg Norman. This is being introspective and changing the sport as a whole. After all, switching up the entire format, getting rid of cuts, and putting top players in a battle royale against each other seems like a dream come true for any golfing fan around the world. It's not just the spectators who benefit though, as even those members who wouldn't be eligible to compete in these revamped events get a piece of the pie. We mean, this is literally what an actual World Golf Championship looks like. Besides, in theory, this also completely staves off the Saudi League's threat because, again, the concept just sounds better in every single way. Like, they've just gotten rid of all the bad elements of Norman's plan, like the teams, and have spun it into something truly incredible. Also, this will finally put an end to the PGA Tour's biggest problem. Now, it may seem like the Tour's biggest challenge is to retain audiences or compete head-to-head against the upstart league, but in reality, the real trial is retaining the top talent that they've already got. We mean, it's almost getting impossible to count the number of golfers that the Australian CEO has managed to entice over to his side. Oh, and they're not just random lower-ranked players either. We're talking about some of the PGA's biggest stars, like Phil Mickelson and Brooks Koepka. Having said that, the real reason why so many people were leaving the tour in the first place wasn't that they wanted to go off and play in some Saudi league. In fact, it was always the sheer amount of money they were being offered. So with the latest restructuring, not only will the winners of these events get pretty much the same amount of money they'd be getting in LIV's invitationals, but there are more opportunities to fill up that bag even more by being popular. How? Well, because even the Players' Impact program's getting a cash injection, taking it to $100 million in total for the top 20 fan-favorite golfers. Oh, and again, there's a lower bound limit for the less popular members as well. For instance, even if you don't make it into a big event, the association will still make sure that you get paid at least $500,000 annually, which can go a long way toward retaining young talent. And finally, the PGA Tour's influence cannot be undermined. Obviously, it'd be silly to write off the LIV Golf Series so prematurely. After all, they've still got some of the best golfers on the planet batting for them. But even if the two entities are now competing on even footing, the path ahead isn't the same for them. We mean, for the PGA Tour, it looks like a highway with no speed limit. Greg Norman, on the other hand, will have to navigate through a winding road to get the same result. Why? Well, that's because the association's been around for over 60 years and has established itself as the biggest golfing entity in the world. The Saudi League, though, is just a new quote-unquote controversial startup that's being backed by the shady public investment fund. And due to that very reason, the breakaway tour will always get scrutinized more than the competition. Also, you gotta remember that even though the Aussie CEO has been pretty good at navigating through all the nasty politics in the game, his influence still doesn't come anywhere close to that of the tour. Like, it was pretty evident when all of his players got banned anyway. That being said, if there is a silver lining for the 67-year-old's efforts, it's the fact that he's actually got this thing up and running, which he was never able to do back in the 90s. That's a wrap for this video. Will these PGA Tour changes spell the end for LIV Golf as we know it? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.